A special greeting to Her Excellency, Ambassador of South Africa to Washington, Ambassador Noma India Mfeketo, with who I worked for decades in organizing townships in the Western Cape and with whom I served in cabinet. Dr. Kenneth L. Harris, the National President of the National Business League, Ms. Edith McLeod, the Acting National Director of the Minority Business Development Agency, Mr. Larry Yon, the Managing Partner of BNC International, Mr. Sandile Zungu, the President of the Black Business Council, Ms. Judy Nukedi, the Secretary General of the Black Business Council, members of the Black Business Council leadership team who have joined us here today, representatives of United States businesses in South Africa. I saw Diren, I saw Brian and others. Our wonderful program director, Ms. Lerato Mataboge, and a warm greeting also to the more than 500 participants who have joined us on the virtual platform. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be with you today at this launch of the inaugural South Africa United States Black Business Seminar. We launched today's initiative in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has caused damage to families, to economies, and to societies. And all over the world, policymakers and corporate leaders are talking about the Great Reset. If history is a guide, then we can see that from the periods of greatest challenges, human beings have developed the boldest of actions. Such a time now confronts our world. I want to start with a reflection on the wider challenges faced by the African continent. Sometimes a set of numbers so aptly summarizes a challenge and a goal that they speak more powerfully than words. That, in my view, applies to African economic development. Consider that Africa has 17% of the world's population, yet only 3% of global GDP, and only 1% of global steel production. These numbers, a metric of population, of overall wealth, and a metric for manufacturing. They put in stark terms our challenge to drive African industrialization and break with the pattern of Africa simply being the provider of raw materials to firms located elsewhere in the world and the consumer of finished goods imported from other parts of the world. And if that is the overriding challenge that we face, then within such a program, the opportunity to build inclusive businesses, inclusive economies, with Black South Africans as active industrialists, young people and women entrepreneurs, that is critical. With opportunities for minority-owned businesses in the United States to engage and to find opportunities in that economic relationship. Africa and South Africa needs more balanced and more equitable economic development. It is that goal, in our view, that represents the big opportunity for this platform that is being launched here today. In particular, our societies need to foster greater levels of industrialization, building and expanding factories and manufacturing units that can use the mining and agricultural output of the continent to create products that are sold across the world. It will create jobs for young people on the scale needed. And if combined with green and with digital technologies, it can position Africa as the next big industrial center. I am reminded of the fact that whilst the efforts of governments both in the United States and in South Africa can help enormously, markets matter. And permit me therefore to refer to two significant opportunities that can help us enable this vision. The first opportunity is the new African Continental Free Trade Area. We call it the AfCFTA. It's intended with time to create a market of 1.2 billion consumers and cover all 55 countries on the continent. My colleagues and I, as African trade ministers, are working to bring this into full operation, and we want to do so during this year, 2021. All the legal treaty provisions have now been concluded. All the technical arrangements have been addressed, and we look forward to the start of trading under the new legal regime following conclusion of bilateral offers between African countries. The second opportunity is to expand and reorient more of our exports to developed markets, of which the United States market is the most significant. It's the richest and the deepest market. An increasing number of Black South Africans are developing businesses in value-added products for which there may be demand in the United States. Their efforts can benefit from access to markets, to capital, to technologies, and to know-how available in the US. To unlock this, we need partnerships. I've spoken about markets, I want to speak about partnerships. Many larger American businesses are already active in the South African economy. There is now an opportunity to expand this in many cases. I am reminded that beyond our focus in South Africa, there are also many African Americans and minority-owned businesses in the United States that have enormous goodwill, skill, and access to capital, which can be harnessed for partnerships with South African manufacturers to find ways to tap into that large market in the United States and globally more successfully. These efforts, of course, can include working together to address challenges that has constrained access of some of our products to the US markets in the last few years, but also to identify new opportunities, and then to tap into partners in the United States that can help us realize that. Ladies and gentlemen, while we have made great strides in building a non-racial society in South Africa with opportunities for all, much more needs to be done. Our levels of youth unemployment and economic inequalities are large. The focus of the South African government is to grow the economy and to support economic inclusion and opportunities for Black South Africans. While in the United States, of course, we would talk about minority-owned businesses, here it would be businesses owned by the majority demographic of South Africans. Indeed, while this effort to build more participation by Black South Africans in the mainstream economy is a necessary corrective to our history, it is also fundamental to our long-term and to our faster economic growth. And in a nod to contemporary concerns, it is increasingly about addressing high inequalities in our society, a challenge many more countries now face, associated with globalization's impact in different parts of the world. We see opportunities for a deeper and a stronger partnership with American corporations and with African American-owned businesses that can support our efforts. South Africa is the United States' largest African trading partner, with many of US multinational corporation headquarters based on our shores. In return, the US is South Africa's third largest trading partner after China and Germany. In 2019, so if I take out the distortions in data caused by the pandemic and the lockdowns of 2020, in 2019, the US goods and services trade with South Africa was an estimated $17.8 billion US dollars. In December 2019, I met with the US administration officials in Washington, and in the course of the conversation, we shared our thoughts not only on how South Africa can benefit from US markets, but also how the United States currently benefits from its economic relationship with South Africa, a story that we need to tell more compellingly in the US. Over the last 10 years, from 2010 to 2019, according to the US Bureau of Economic Analysis, the cumulative balance of payments from trade in goods and services, as well as payments and receipts of income, was net in favor of the United States to an amount of $5.8 billion US dollars. In other words, when one includes dividends which US firms earn from investment in South Africa and the earnings which both US and South African businesses earn from trade, the US has a net benefit of nearly 6 billion US dollars. South Africa also provides critical mineral inputs to a number of US industries and corporations for their production facilities in the United States. These include, for example, palladium, platinum, rhodium, titanium, iridium, ferromanganese, vanadium, and chromium. In a number of these, South Africa provides more than half of the mineral type imported by the United States. And these minerals, of course, support many thousands of United States jobs in manufacturing. It's in this context that we would want to discuss with the United States how we can gain additional access for value-added South African products within the United States, add more value in South Africa, more manufacturing transformation of our raw material base, more employment of labor, more opportunities for entrepreneurship in South Africa, and to provide more opportunities for women, for youth, and for Black industrialists, so that both countries can benefit to a greater extent from the economic relationship. I look forward, therefore, to the scheduled discussion that we plan to have next week with Secretary Tai, the new US Trade Representative. Our focus in South Africa is on building dynamic firms, transformed and inclusive economies, and a more resilient society. If there's a lesson from COVID, it's about building resilience, the ability of society and economies to adapt rapidly, to utilize the technologies available to address the health challenges, but also the need for economic reconstruction in the wake of the damage caused by the times we live in. Of course, as I speak about building more dynamic firms, transforming our economy, and increasing and scaling up the work that we are doing, there are positive examples and initiatives in place, a number in partnership with United States corporations that can inspire us to do more. These cover issues such as US companies that are now deepening their supplier development with transfer of skills, opportunities for procurement, and localization. But it's also about broad-based empowerment, providing opportunities for more Black South Africans to benefit from that economic relationship. And it's about expanding investment. Investment is the big driver of economic output. And South Africa can do with a significant enhancement of our investment base. Our President Ramaphosa, has put a challenge out to his cabinet, a challenge that we need to ensure that in a period of time, a 5-year period, we marshal and we garner $100 billion US of fresh investment. So I want to build on the progress that we are making with American corporations and highlight a few initiatives that have been taken, taking 4 case studies to illustrate different aspects of what we can do. The Ford Motor Company recently announced a $1 billion US expansion of their production facilities in South Africa, 16 billion rand in local currency, so that they take their car making capacity from, call it about 160,000 units annually that they can produce in South Africa, to more than 200,000 vehicles produced, assembled here in South Africa, providing a platform for more localization of components. So it's not only more assembled vehicles, but also more of the critical components that go into that vehicle that will be manufactured in South Africa. And strengthening the country as a launch pad for exports of the Ford Ranger, what we call bakkie or vehicle in South Africa, to more than 150 countries across the world. And this has been accompanied by an effort by Ford Motor Company to see how they can use their supply chain to bring greater opportunities for Black South Africans. They've committed 380 million rand in cash and about 700 million rand in market access or procurement opportunities over a number of years to bring in young people and black component manufacturers and car dealers and others, so that the impact of their work is not only in the output of vehicles, but also in fostering development in South Africa. Coca-Cola, a number of years ago, combined 3 of the major bottling operations into Africa's largest bottling company. In the course of doing that merger, we entered into an agreement in which Coca-Cola committed to spend about 800 million rand in supplier development and entrepreneurial support to Black South Africans. And in February this year, Coca-Cola rather, made available something of the order of 240 million rand that will be available over a 3-year period for our country's industrialization and localization efforts. And this is not only in their own ecosystem, it's much wider. It embraces the broad partnership between the business community and the South African government, together with the labor movement and community organizations that President Ramaphosa announced in the State of the Nation address earlier this year. But Coca-Cola went further. They said, we can also see now, in addition to getting our aggregate procurement right and getting more of our components and our packaging and our inputs from South Africa, there's an opportunity to bring more Black South African small-scale sugar farmers into our supply chain. And they committed to an agreed numeric to do that, and we're working now in partnership with them to realize that. And finally, they decided that in order to give broad-based empowerment a significant boost, that in addition to the BEE, Black Economic Empowerment, that they have in place, that they would scale up the issue of equity shares in the company to their employees, largely Black South Africans. And they committed to achieving a 15% worker ownership of the Coca-Cola Beverages South Africa company. And that would cover about 8,000 workers in South Africa. The third example I want to give is PepsiCo. PepsiCo is a US corporation that had a local business in South Africa called Simba Chips, and they bought a large South African company named Pioneer Foods, combined these two, are in the process of combining these two into a major food producer. In the course of the agreements that we've reached with them, they've set aside 600 million rand that would be directed to support small-scale farmers, and these are largely Black South Africans, but also to provide skills to young South Africans who are going to university to study different aspects of the agriculture value chain, and to commit to partnerships with local universities to promote research and development in South Africa, so that in fact we're not only a producer of goods, we're also an innovator in new kinds of products. In the course of our conversation with PepsiCo, we identified jointly certain value chains and products where they felt they could work closely with the South African government to bring more of those products to South Africa. They cover things like oats and potatoes and maize and sugar and raisins and other products of that type. And finally, they committed to a worker empowerment deal that would enable their 12,000 South African workers to have 13% of the equity of the combined South African firm. My final example is that of Walmart. Walmart, a number of years ago, acquired the Massmart Group, a big South African white goods and equipment store that is diversified into a range of other offerings. And in the course of what was initially a challenging conversation, but eventually became a strong and an active partnership, they committed to make available a sum of money for supplier development. That has grown over the years. It's eventually reached more than R250 million, and it funded and supported more than 30 small and medium enterprises. Now, once those enterprises are launched and supported, and sometimes it meant helping them with the packaging, sometimes it meant helping them with the funding required to upgrade their plant to equipment. Once they're up and running, the big value that a Walmart can bring is as a procurement off-taker. And to date, it's bought more than 1.6 billion rands worth of goods from these small and medium enterprises. And I was quite happy to see that we now have some of these companies that are beginning to supply globally in Walmart's value chain. And I look forward to efforts to expand these very, very significantly. One illustration of it is through this partnership between government and Walmart and a number of small players, a Black South African began to produce cooler boxes that initially went into the stores in South Africa, and now it's exported to other African countries, providing his business with the kind of scale that would enable it to be a significant player. All these efforts illustrate what can be achieved through a strong partnership. And we need to find commercially sustainable way to scale this up. Recently, the business community in South Africa, together with government and a number of NGO partners, the trade union movement, as well as community organizations, identified some 42 products that we will work to re-onshore, if I can use an American expression, or to localize, if I use a South African expression. There are products in agro-processing value chain, in healthcare, in basic consumer goods, in capital goods and equipment, in the construction-driven value chain, and in transport rolling stock. South Africa today is Africa's biggest producer of automobiles, and we are a significant producer of trains and rolling stock. And we now want to position the country to be able to do even more. So if I'm looking really for a concluding comment in wishing the inaugural meeting well, it's to say, how can we do more by scaling up? And how can we do better by integrating our efforts? When a large American corporation partners with a Black South African industrialist, and we bring into that also the support that the South African government can bring through industrial funding, through the Industrial Development Corporation, the access to the American markets that can be facilitated by the US government, the access to technologies and know-how that can be facilitated through joint ventures with American entrepreneurs, we really are able to ensure that the few swallows that we see become a big summer to ensure that we are able to achieve through scale what we need to do. So this inaugural South Africa-US Black Business Summit provides that platform, a platform to strengthen our economic and other ties, to use the opportunity at the start of a new administration, the Biden administration, to attract US capital, to enable a deepening of the skills base in South Africa, and to acquire the know-how and the technologies that are needed to address the trade challenges that hold back the opportunity for us to be able to sell much more in the US market, and to develop the products and services for our domestic market, but also for the larger African continental market. So the opportunities are there. If COVID is about the big reset, here are practical ways in which we are able to achieve this. And I look forward to working in close partnership with the participants in this summit and the platform that we've created. And I know I have a very energetic, very committed and strong support from the ambassador in Washington, D.C., and we will make things move and get volume scaled up. And we look forward then to your session today being a productive one. And I want to see orders flowing from this and business taking off and jobs being created for young South Africans. So, Program Director, thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words. May I then hand back to you.